Hey guys, welcome back to the OrmsTV flagship shootout on day 3 here at Simola Hillclimb. And what an awesome weekend it was, you know?
It was. It's been absolutely insane. We've been carrying around some monstrosity of cameras, essentially.
Big lenses, tripods, heavy bags.
Yeah, heavy bodies, big memory cards.
In the rain and sunshine today, luckily. But yeah, it was an amazing weekend, and it's very rare where you get all 3 big brand flagships together. You have all 3 big brands, big lenses, 600 mils, 400 mils, 70, 200, 24-70, you name it.
Yeah.
All in one place to actually test. So this was a great time to put these to the test, you know?
Yeah, so essentially what we did was we grabbed the Canon EOS R1, the Nikon Z9, and of course the Sony A1 II, and we figured we would actually use them to shoot an event, to cover everything, to shoot the cars, the people, the pit lane here, some action, some video, some stills, some bursts, anything that a working photographer at an event like this would be shooting. So we're not going to bore you guys with specs, because honestly, everybody knows the specs of these cameras. They don't mess around. They're monsters. We know what that's about. This is more about how are these cameras to actually use.
A real world experience. Now, a question a lot of clients ask is, are these cameras weather sealed? And we can definitely confirm they are very good when it comes to either dust and or specifically rain.
Yeah.
Because they held up. Everything is still 100% on these bodies and lenses.
Yeah, on Friday, the rain really came down, and like no word of a lie, these cameras were soaked.
Yeah.
Like you were literally like brushing water off them, like the whole time continuously. They were standing in water, and they're absolutely perfect. Everything works, everything holds up. Like on some of them, even like ports were open because we had microphones in and all that, and they were absolutely perfect.
Now, another cool thing with these mirrorless cameras is the capabilities of having stabilization built into the bodies, the IBIS. Now, all of these obviously have real IBIS, but they also have sort of like a digital enhanced image stabilization. And I think all cameras, or all 3 cameras, do very well at this.
Yeah.
However, in the video side of things, this dynamic stabilization in the Sony for me just has that extra little bit of smooth movement. It felt almost like I was shooting with a gimbal. And a side note, none of the shots we did were shot with gimbals.
Yeah,
just handheld.
Everything handheld. And I think the cameras held up phenomenally well.
Very good, yeah.
So obviously, some of the lenses also have image stabilization in.
Yes, yeah.
And when you're shooting with those, like on the 70-200s, the 24-70s, you just get that little bit of extra smoothness out of it even. I think, again, it's something that all of these cameras do incredibly well. Like you can see out of the video footage that we're going to be showing throughout this, it is super smooth, considering that it was literally shot like this. You know, good old-fashioned hands and arms, nothing else. I think it's great, and I do agree with you. I think the Sony has a slight edge on it on that digital stabilization.
Yes, yeah.
It's super silky.
Yes.
But, I mean, you know, you're not going to be undone if you're going Nikon or Canon by the stabilizer. Yeah. They are absolutely bang.
And just remember that if you do activate that digital stabilization, you are cropping into the image. And yeah, there's maybe a slight sacrifice in image quality, but it's not something you'll notice at all.
Then the other thing that really stood out for me over the weekend is something that's a little bit more subjective, but still kind of the same between these 3 cameras, even though one of them is very different to the others, and that is the ergonomics and the use case for every camera. Now, obviously, the Z9 and the R1 are the kind of traditional flagship body design where you have a built-in vertical grip. Okay. The Sony does not have that by default, but we'll get to that. So on the R1 and the Z9, you can shoot over here, and if you swing around, you have a duplicate control set on this side. Super easy to use, super easy to get to grips with. Very nice duplicate buttons everywhere. Kind of like a traditional professional camera layout and all that. And I prefer this type of layout because it fits me better, it fits my hands better. But you have a different opinion there.
Yeah, we always seem to sort of differ on this subject because my hands are so much smaller than yours. So I prefer the smaller grips. I prefer the lighter body. I prefer the smaller body, especially on a weekend like this. You're carting around so much lenses. You don't want your bag to be too full and too heavy. So just cutting that grip off, it just makes the sort of handling for me a little bit better, especially when I'm doing a little bit more video-y kind of stuff. But pros and cons for both. I mean, with the grip you have a crazy battery life in this camera. I don't even think you ever ran out of battery the whole day that you were shooting. I mean, I was probably running 2, maybe 3 batteries a day.
Yeah.
So that is something to also remember, that with the smaller body, you have smaller battery, you'll have less battery life as well.
Absolutely. But I think that's such a subjective thing, the grip, and that you kind of have to go into a shop, hold them, see which one fits better for you. And I guess also what fits into your workflow more.
Yeah.
If you are somebody who's doing a lot of stills and you do go vertical quite often, then maybe there's a better use case. But at the same time, get a battery grip for the A1 and you sort it.
Cool. So seeing that was more of the similarities on all these sort of models, let's maybe chat about the biggest differences between them. And I think there's an obvious one, especially if you look at spec sheets.
Yeah.
And that's obviously the megapixel,
Correct.
The Sony and the Nikon is flipping high megapixel, while unfortunately the Canon R1, you're looking at half the megapixel.
Pretty much.
And yeah, that can make a big difference when it comes to image quality, but also more cropping. And I think when you're shooting sport and wildlife, cropping can sometimes save an image.
Yeah, I mean, like again, we'll show you examples of what we've been shooting this weekend. And there's plenty instances where we simply couldn't get close enough to the action to frame the shot exactly like we wanted. With the Z9 and with the A1, you have that advantage. You can literally crop in essentially, a full frame further crop than what you can on the Canon and maintain the same resolution, the same megapixel output. And I get it, megapixels isn't everything. It's not the holy grail of photography. It's not the end of the world, but there are use cases where you can simply do it. I know for a fact that you use the DX crop on the Sony often.
Yeah, I actually assigned it as a custom button on the camera.
Yeah.
So I would literally just tap the little delete button and it would instantly go into a crop mode.
Yeah.
And obviously, like you said, when you're shooting sport, you don't have time always to change to the longer lens. So you can just push the button, boom, there you have an extra little bit of a crop just to get that shot,
Yeah, and still maintaining that image quality.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, no matter how you put it, that is something where the Canon is going to struggle a little bit. Now, let's just get it out of the way. In no way, shape or form are we saying that the Canon's image quality is bad. It is really, really good. It is still a flagship camera. It's a good sensor. The quality output on all of these are absolutely insane. The color renditions are bang on. The dynamic range that you get out of it is incredible. And there is an instance here where there's maybe an advantage to having that slightly lower megapixel count, and that could come when you are looking at the dynamic range output of the unit.
Yeah.
Like, I will say that I was very impressed with what the Canon delivered. In that, there's instances where we were shooting in the pits. So you're undercover in like the pit tents, which you'll see behind us over there. And you're kind of shooting a car, but you've also got the background, which is outside, bright sunlight, like completely overexposed. And I feel like the Canon held up a little bit better for me then definitely then I think the Nikon, like the Sony's maybe a little bit closer in my opinion, but it's, I mean, we're splitting hairs here.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so like maybe in those instances the lower megapixel count can be an advantage, but there's definitely a slight disadvantage to it as well. Now the other thing where in my opinion I definitely felt there was a difference between these three cameras is in their autofocus performance. And when we're shooting over this weekend, obviously it's motor racing.
Yeah.
So we are relying heavily on the auto detect functionality of these cameras, specifically obviously their vehicle auto detect. And for me, that's where I picked up the biggest difference. The Canon and the Sony, man, they know what a car is.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. It
And-
snaps onto them very quickly.
I mean-
Either it being a mag,
Yeah.
the front part of the car,
Yeah.
the back part, it
Yeah.
just knows that's the shape of a car.
Absolutely. It'll pick up a headlight, a tail light, anything, and it knows, cool, we're looking at a car, even if it is tiny in your frame. The Nikon, though, not quite.
Yeah, the subject needs to be a little bit closer for it to snap on, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it kind of needs to have the whole profile of a car. There was a lot of instances where like I could only see kind of like the front of like a race car. And you know, it's a bit of a different shape than like your normal everyday SUV or sedan or whatever. And the Nikon takes a little bit of time before it decides, oh, that's a car. Let's lock on, let's do our thing. Again, not a massive cataclysmic difference in performance here. We're splitting hairs, like really, really finely here. But it is a difference. And yeah, the Nikon, the car needs to be a bit closer, it needs to be a bit fuller in the frame, either a profile or something like that. And then it locks on. And when it locks on, I mean, it is locked, it is tight, the performance is good. Bursting through a frame or tracking on a video, no problem whatsoever. The Canon and the Sony just do it a little bit better.
Yeah. Also, autofocus is so software based.
Yeah.
You know, they can tweak their algorithms and improve on that with time. So that's something that they can always do with firmware updates or when there's a new sort of model coming to the scene.
Absolutely.
Something that was very handy, you can obviously do this with all three models, is set up custom autofocus modes to quickly switch between, let's say, car and human tracking. You can also put it on auto, but I like the functionality of just snapping between human and car for when the driver gets out or you're shooting in the pits or whatever. That was quite a cool function as well.
Yeah, so I shoot slightly differently. I don't switch between like human and car. When I shot in the pits, I go to auto and just let the camera decide where I want to be. And for me, all of them did that really, really well. It knows if I'm kind of pointing more at a face, we're going to go face, we're going to go eye, left eye, right eye, that kind of thing. Like, they did it phenomenally well, all three of them. I'm super impressed with the autofocus. It is the best autofocus money can buy in all of these brands, irrespective.
All right, so overall, good points mentioned. Let's jump to some video. In terms of video, in terms of specs and frame rates, these cameras are very similar except for the R1 that obviously cannot do 8K due to the resolution being 24 megapixels. But I think if you look at the workflow process, I still feel like Sony's profile and the compression they have in their camera is a little bit superior to the other brands, but it's so small that it's not a big deal. I think most videographers would probably prefer the Sony or the Canon. That's going to be their sort of take on it.
Absolutely.
And I don't think there's sort of deal breakers here with these three models when it comes to video.
No, the video is good. The autofocus performance in video is good. The quality that you get out is fantastic. I am going to give the straight out of camera color accuracy to Canon. You know, like I still think like they do skin tones slightly better than the Sony and the Nikon. So like I'll give that to them. But the Sony and the Nikon can push 8K if that's something that you really need. But let's be honest, in the real world, who's actually shooting 8K? That's probably not happening, not at this level at least. You know, so as long as you've got your 4K 100/120 in here, like that performance is absolutely bang on. Your slow-mo's excellent, the crispness is there, the resolution's perfect, the quality is excellent. All three of these cameras easily deliver professional level video output, no problem.
Now, before we get to our conclusion, I have a question for you.
Yep.
We're at this event. There's obviously public,
Yep.
there's obviously professional media,
Yep.
including us.
Of course.
But the question is, what cameras did you see public missioning around with?
Okay.
And on the same question, what cameras were the media running with? Was it Canon, Nikon, Sony? And also, what cameras did you see the most of, if you could sort of spot a model even?
Okay, so I'm going to put it out there that in terms of general public use, like what I've been seeing, a lot of Canon and Nikon. Okay.
And the public now.
In the public, yeah.
Yeah.
General Joe public, like
Yeah.
we're just, we're enjoying the event kind of thing.
And funny enough, a lot of Nikon DSLRs actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, like that was quite noticeable, I will give
Yeah.
you that. In terms of what the pros are running with, at an event like this, I feel like there is maybe a skew towards video content being produced, and most of the pros in media and that I saw were running Sonys.
Yeah, I would say almost 90% of the media were on Sony's,
Yeah.
which was sort of interesting to see.
Mm.
And the funny thing is that if you do see a media guy, it seemed like it was more like a traditional photographer,
Yes,
more like an old school kind of photographer.
correct.
And he was shooting on Canon.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was at least mirrorless.
True.
Some were
definitely.
mirrorless, some were DSLR.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to see that shift where Sony kind of dominates that field in the pro media.
Absolutely. It was very, very interesting.
Yeah. All right, conclusion. And I think our viewers kind of know it. I like it short and sweet.
Yep.
Overall, all three cameras are amazing.
Yeah.
Will produce great image quality, great speed, great autofocus technology, great video, blah, blah, blah. But if I had to grab one, and my mind just kind of always wanted to go to the Sony.
Fair enough.
The Sony was like great for video. It was great high resolution stills,
Yeah.
very good accurate autofocus. It just felt like a more complete tool for sort of this weekend.
Yeah. So I might have a slightly longer thought, but we'll see how it goes. I'm with you on this one though. If I had to grab a camera right now and I didn't know what the assignment was, if it was like you're going out on a job, you're gonna go shoot something, you need to grab a camera and you have 10 seconds. What are you grabbing? I'm grabbing the A1, okay? Because I have the megapixel count. I have all the video features I could possibly want for whatever the assignment is. I have the speed, I have the autofocus, and as we've proven this weekend, I have the reliability. Yes, maybe not the longest battery life, but at the end of the day, I'll stick 3 extra batteries in my bag and I'm fine, okay? And I didn't think that that would be my conclusion at the end of this weekend. I genuinely thought that I would lean towards the Canon because Canon's easier for me to operate, okay? Because I'm not a daily Sony user. You are, you know that menu. I struggle a little bit with it still. It's a lot better than it used to be, but it's still a little bit of a struggle for me. The Nikon kind of splits the difference there. It's got a lot of the simplicity that you get out of the Canon, some of the complexity that you get in the Sony, but the Nikon still feels like it's not quite where the Canon and the Sony is at. And I'm talking purely autofocus performance here, because everything else, not a problem at all.
Yeah.
It performs, it beasts it, no problem. But it feels like it's a quarter of a generation behind on the autofocus performance. Sometimes it struggles, it hunts a bit, it takes a little bit long to figure out where a car is. And that's why initially I thought the Canon would do it for me. Because as I'm standing here, I still think the Canon has the best autofocus out of all three of these. The Sony is so close, like a hair width away. But I feel like the Canon still has it. Okay, if that Canon locks on, it's not going anywhere. It instinctively knows what I'm aiming at. Like, the Canon for me feels better. But I found myself missing that extra resolution this weekend. And it's not a deal breaker. It's not the end of the world. It just feels like 50 megapixels is kind of where the game has moved to. And for that reason, if I had to pick one, like I said, to go out, I didn't know what the assignment was. You'd shoot anything at all. I'm with you, man. I'm picking that Sony.
So that's it for our flagship shootout here at the beautiful Simola Hillclimb. We would like to thank the event for hosting us.
Yep.
It is such a cool event. If you're into cars, you have to come check it out. It's in Knysna. I mean, this town is so beautiful on its own as well.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous out here. The event is so well organized. We've been having an absolute blast here. And we'll probably see you guys here next year again. Like, it is that type of event. You come once, you're going to be here every time. Now, we know in this video we didn't dive deep on the specs. If you want more spec heavy reviews on these cameras, it's up on our channel. Just go search there. You'll find them. This is just what we thought of them. They're amazing. You won't make a bad decision if you go for any of them. We're going to go back to watching some fast cars, doing some crazy stuff. We'll check you guys next time.